Welcome to People Deserve to Live. I'm Sam.
And I'm Shirin. For weeks, the world has been focused on missile strikes between the United States and Iran, but the conflict is no longer confined to that single front. It's expanding.
That's right. It's spreading across military bases in neighboring countries, vital commercial shipping routes, the skies over Lebanon and Gaza, and now, critically, the waters of the Red Sea. We're looking at a conflict with two major choke points and many active fronts.
Today, we're asking, is the Middle East war expanding beyond anyone's control? And the main development driving that question comes from Yemen.
Exactly. The Iran-aligned Houthi movement, which controls a significant part of Yemen, has made a major announcement. They've declared what they're calling a maritime blockade against Saudi Arabia and have threatened any vessels involved in Saudi trade.
And this isn't just a threat, Sam. According to Reuters, several large tankers carrying Saudi oil have already reversed course to avoid the area. This is happening at a critical choke point, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait.
For our listeners, let's quickly explain why that strait is so important. Think of it as a narrow gateway, only about 20 miles wide at its narrowest point, connecting the Red Sea with the Gulf of Aden and the wider Indian Ocean.
A gateway.
Precisely. Any ship traveling between Asia and Europe via the Suez Canal has to pass through it. The same goes for much of the oil coming out of Saudi ports. Any disruption there creates massive ripple effects.
And this new pressure on Bab el-Mandeb doesn't exist in a vacuum. It connects directly to the ongoing crisis in the other major maritime choke point in the region, the Strait of Hormuz.
Right. Shipping traffic through Hormuz, which is the gateway to the Persian Gulf, has already fallen dramatically because of attacks, threats, and competing blockades. So now you have pressure on both of the region's most vital waterways.
And that affects everyone, not just people in the Middle East. We're talking about the potential for a spike in global oil supplies, which affects gas prices and airline costs. Shipping insurance rates go up. Transportation costs for goods increase.
Which means food prices can rise. It hits ordinary families and their wallets, thousands of miles away from the conflict itself. And we're not just talking about direct consumer goods. The disruption to shipping routes affects the global supply chain in a much deeper way. Think about all the components that go into manufacturing, from microchips to car parts. Many of these rely on just-in-time delivery. When ships are delayed or rerouted, it can bring entire industries to a standstill.
Meanwhile, the direct military confrontation between the U.S. and Iran continues to intensify. The U.S. military reported just this morning that it completed its 10th consecutive night of strikes against what it described as Iranian assets. That's a crucial point, Sam. The interconnectedness of the global economy means that a crisis in one region can have far-reaching consequences. For example, we're already seeing reports of major shipping companies rerouting their vessels around the Cape of Good Hope to avoid the Red Sea. This adds thousands of miles and weeks to their journey, which in turn increases fuel costs, crew time, and insurance premiums. It's a logistical nightmare that ultimately gets passed down to consumers.
10th consecutive night. And the targets listed include command centers, air defense systems, missile positions, drone facilities, and maritime capabilities. It's a widespread campaign.
Iran, of course, has retaliated. The Associated Press reports on missile and drone attacks targeting American military positions across the region. And this is where the conflict really starts to pull in other countries.
Yes, because those American bases are hosted by U.S. allied countries like Bahrain, Kuwait, and Jordan. These Gulf countries can become targets for retaliation, even if their governments have no desire to be direct participants in a war between the U.S. and Iran.
It puts them in an impossible position, and it's having a real cost. There have been reports of American military casualties, which is increasing the political pressure inside the United States.
Which leads to the central question for Washington's strategy right now. Is this continued bombing campaign actually weakening Iran's ability to fight, or is it just expanding the number of countries, soldiers, and civilians being placed in immediate danger? It's a very open question.
A critical one. And another major actor watching this all very closely is Israel. So where does Israel fit into this new phase?
Well, Israel remains closely aligned with the United States and has been very clear that it is preparing military options in case the conflict escalates further. However, current reporting from multiple outlets indicates that Israel may not be directly entering this latest phase of U.S.-Iran fighting.
So it's a wait-and-see approach? The question is, does Israel remaining on the sidelines for now reduce the overall risk of escalation, or does it just mean that another major and potentially devastating front could open up later?
We can't predict that, of course, but it's a major point of uncertainty. And that brings us to another front, Lebanon and Hezbollah. There are some diplomatic moves happening there, Shirin.
Right. CNN's reporting indicates that Lebanese President Joseph Aoun met with the American president to discuss a comprehensive plan for southern Lebanon.
The plan is ambitious. It would involve expanding Lebanese army control over the south, the disarmament of Hezbollah, and a supported, verified Israeli withdrawal from all Lebanese territory.
And there seems to be some tentative movement. There are reports that Lebanese army troops have begun entering certain southern areas after Israeli withdrawals, sort of a pilot zone arrangement.
But the situation on the ground is extremely fragile. We're seeing images of heavily damaged homes. There are unexploded weapons and a deep sense of distrust. And with Israeli forces still nearby, civilian return is proving very difficult.
And the issue of Hezbollah's disarmament is incredibly complex. On one hand, many Lebanese citizens want their national government and army to be the sole authority with weapons. It's a core principle of state sovereignty.
Of course, but on the other hand, others, particularly supporters of Hezbollah, fear that disarmament is being pushed by foreign powers and would leave Lebanon vulnerable, especially before a complete and total Israeli withdrawal. Both are deeply held positions within the country.
And as we discuss all these strategic fronts, Iran, Yemen, Lebanon, the shipping lanes, it's essential we don't lose sight of Gaza. The humanitarian crisis there continues, even if it's not always in the headlines.
Absolutely. Just yesterday, medical officials in Gaza City reported that an Israeli airstrike killed a father, a mother, and their 4 children while they were sleeping in their home.
The Israeli military acknowledged the strike, stating it was targeting a Hamas member and that they were investigating the results and the reports of civilian casualties.
And this event is a devastating reminder. While international attention moves toward military strategy, oil prices, and geopolitics, Palestinian civilians in Gaza continue to experience airstrikes, displacement, the loss of entire families, and profound insecurity every single day.
So, amid all this fighting, are there any diplomatic efforts to de-escalate?
There are some. Regional mediators have proposed a 10-day ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran. Al Jazeera reports that Iran is reviewing the proposal, but its future is uncertain, especially with military operations continuing and conflicting public statements coming from some American officials.
Which leaves us with so many unanswered, difficult questions. For example, can any temporary ceasefire actually succeed if it doesn't address the core issue of shipping through Hormuz and now Bab al-Mandeb?
That's a huge one. And how can Saudi Arabia respond to the Houthi blockade without getting pulled back into a larger, devastating war in Yemen?
In Lebanon, can Hezbollah be disarmed without creating a new internal conflict? Will Israel truly remain outside this latest round of U.S.-Iran attacks? The list goes on.
And maybe the 2 biggest questions? While governments concentrate on military advantage, who is protecting the civilians caught in the middle? And how many of these fronts can open before the entire conflict becomes impossible to contain?
It's a sobering thought. The world often discusses strategic waterways, military targets, oil markets, and political victories. But behind every single point on that military map, there are families just trying to sleep safely.
Mm-hmm.
There are workers aboard those commercial ships, soldiers who are far from their homes, displaced communities waiting for a chance to return, and children who did not choose any of this conflict.
It's so important to remember that. People are always more than the governments acting in their names. No political objective should ever erase the value of civilian life.
People deserve security, they deserve dignity, they deserve peace. And above all, people deserve to live.
Thank you for joining us on People Deserve to Live. We invite you to share your thoughts with us, respectfully, on our social media channels. And if you found this conversation valuable, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps us continue this work. We'll talk to you next time.